Mino Line Media presents the Business First Podcast.
Hi, all, and welcome to a new edition of Business First with Sonia Aline. I am your host. And, one of the reasons I really enjoy this podcast is because we get to speak to a number of different types of business owners. I'm especially excited when I get to talk to small business owners because we understand how important they are to the community. And so I know you will enjoy this episode because we have someone who understands the importance of her value in her community, and she's been doing it for 20 plus years. Her name is Monisha Phillips, and she's the owner of Pandora Box in the Federal Hill section of Baltimore. Welcome, Monisha.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So as I mentioned, you've been I don't know if you've been in Federal Hill for 20 plus years, but you have been in the Baltimore community for 20 plus years. And so tell us a little bit about what that's been like growing and developing your business in your hometown.
Well, I have been in Federal Hill for 22 years, and I love it. Of course, it has its ups and downs, but, I love Baltimore. We're the city of neighborhoods, and that's what I enjoy the most because there's people coming from all over. There's different neighborhoods, and I like being in a part of downtown part of Baltimore where there's visitors, there's locals, there's customers that are coming for the weekend that's here for conferences. They're here for going to Johns Hopkins for medical research. So I come across so many people in my location, which is great. It's exciting because it's, I never know who I'm going to see or meet. Just a couple of weeks ago, I saw the governor popped in. The governor, our first Black governor of Maryland. So that was exciting. So you just never know. But I love what I do. I've been in the neighborhood, like I said, in Baltimore for 22 years. When I first started out, I don't know if that's part of the question that you asked me.
Yeah, no, you can continue. Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be a business owner at the age of 9. Some may say at 9. Yes, because when back in the 70s, or I guess at this point it would have been the 80s, when the Easy Bake Oven came out and everybody, that was the craze. I knew then I did not want, even though my parents bought me the Easy Bake Oven, I didn't want it. I specifically asked for a cash register. And so my parents were like, so you don't want an Easy Bake Oven, you want a cash register? I said, yes, because I want to do business. And, that was exciting for me. So once we got over that hump, I'm like, I want a cash register. So I got my cash register, and when families would come over for whatever events or just come over, they visit his grandma's house because my grandmother lived with me also. So growing up as a child anyway. And when family would come over, I would make like pictures and paintings or color pages, and I would actually sell that to them. I'm like, okay, so I need to make some money off of this stuff. So, and I would ring them up on my cash register. And I knew then. And my parents was like, okay, so I think she's on to something because who taught her this? Where did she learn that from?
Well, I was going to ask you that. Like, what was it, do you think at 9 prompted you to say, I know I want to go into business? When most of us were like, I want to be a model, an airline stewardess, or, a police officer. Like, and there's nothing wrong with any of those professions, but that's what most 9-year-olds, maybe a doctor, a lawyer, most of us weren't saying, I want to own my own business.
So I think just going to small businesses with my parents and my grandmother, because she was my caretaker when my parents was at work. So I think part of it is like going to your local grocery store from your neighborhood. Because back then, businesses were owned by, a lot of those small businesses owned from merchants and from your neighbors. And I also had family members. I remember my great uncle owning his own shoe shop. Where he would fix shoes, he would sell shoes. Customers would come there and get their fur coats or getting their leather, jackets, whatever, fixed. So I watched family members just locally traveling. And then also my family made it a business on the weekends. Our outing was, we would go to Lexington Market, which is a big public market here. And then they had the Hustlers. And seeing that as a young age, like, okay, you shop. People were happy. The energy was there, so I look forward to those weekend outings with my family. And I think something at that point must have just clicked. Like, this is what I want to do when I grow up.
So tell us a little bit about that journey, because you were working and had to quit a job. Like, what moment did you decide, you know what, the dream that I've always had,
I always said, even going into business, that I was going to support my business until it would support me, meaning I would work full time. And then one day I would be able to secure enough funding or just have put my business in a position that it can now support me. Of course, we know like it's always a dream, but there's still things. I mean, you still need to live. There's still, things. That's the reality of it all. We can have these dreams, but we still need to live and we need to be realistic. So I worked along the way. And at one moment, for many years, there was a couple things that made me decide to say, okay, now is the time. One is because for many years, no one knew that I owned the store because I would always have employees here or college students or part-time employees who ran the store for me. And, after a while, I just feel like when it's a small business, no matter who you hire, they're just not going to treat it the same as you will. And I did both for a while. And then the second piece was, okay, I wanted to, one, work in the store myself. And then two, on the employment side of things, I decided, I'm like, I need my freedom. It wasn't more or less the monetary part of it, it was the freedom, my time. I valued my time. I also, from many times of requesting leave off, I'm just going to be transparent, requesting leave off. And it's like, no, this is not the right time. And, after a while, especially when you have a family, I was like, okay, I'm trading a lot for like these, making a lot of sacrifices. In life, you make a lot of sacrifices. But for me, the ultimate moment was, it's time for me to just step out on faith, know that I can do this. I've been doing this. I'm going to have to make some sacrifices, maybe, less dinners out to sacrifice, but I need to just focus on just really working for myself. And that's what I did after many years. So I think I worked along with having a store for about maybe 12 years. And then I wanted the freedom and I wanted to step out on faith. Like I needed completely, because I felt like the business is doing well now. Imagine if I'm giving it 100% or 110% where it would grow. And it has.
So you started your business around the time when everybody was looking at e-commerce and going online.
Yes.
And so what was it about your business, or what is it about your business that you felt confident that you could be a strong brick and mortar as well as have an online?
Well, because we're all human. And I feel like your business, and when you build brands and when you build business, it's all about relationships. And e-commerce does not do that. I mean, you can have the apps, you can do whatever, but you need to know your customers. When it's a small business, the customer really want to know who you are, where, how did you start this business? They like you, they like your story. And that's what it was about for me. I always want to be this business, Pandora's Box. There's a human behind it. It's not just so business every day. There's a human behind it. And I go through things as well. And I like my customers to know the same way. And I think that's what has grown my business. The relationships that I've built. Like I've had customers who I've watched their journey when they came in for their first, and this is something that e-commerce, and I'm not, e-commerce is big and I'm not knocking at all, but I've watched customers in there where they came in for earrings for their first date and they go out on their first date. And then I see them 6 months later, they're a couple. And then 2 years later, they're engaged. So they're getting earrings and they're getting, gifts for their engagement party, then their wedding, and then they have a kid. And then there's a christening. So there's so many customers. I'm telling my age right now, but I've watched that, that profile of a customer that I've built from beginning to, I've watched the stages of their life. And that's what I pride myself in having a small business, because a lot of the customers I have, I know them and they definitely know me.
In 21 years, I listened to another podcast that you had done. And, a lot of the conversation recently has been how people have been able to overcome the challenges of the pandemic. But listening to you do this previous interview, like you had a lot of challenges.
Oh, yeah.
We had there've been many challenges, like whether it was, the police brutality that happened in Baltimore, the demonstrations, the last recession in 2007. You've gone through a lot. And so tell us a little bit about what that resilience looks like, and even what some of the lessons you've learned in going through all of these different things that were going on nationally and in some cases going on specifically right in Baltimore?
Me listening to all of that, all of those, some things being traumatic. One, we had the unrest, where you lose a lot of, I'm used to like having many, during the unrest, Freddie Ray's, during the unrest here in Baltimore, we lost a lot of conferences, and where I'm located, there's a lot of visitors. So there's a lot of conferences that come from all over the world here, but that was a lot that we lost. So that's revenue. Even during the pandemic, wow, how can I say this? All of those things affected me, but I always look around but it's not just me. I look around the world and it's happening to everyone. But I do believe that there's a tomorrow, and things like that don't last forever. And I had faith, and I learned that, fear will only paralyze me if I always work off of fear that this is going to happen and something else is going to happen. So there's the faith. I had family. I have a good village of friends who support me, who've been there, my parents, my family, my husband, my son, so I think having that support system matters when you have a business, even though entrepreneurship is very lonely, but at times having that right support system to recognize that, you know what, she might need some help, or let me reach out. So that foremost. And then because I was always able, well, not always, but for the last several years, put myself in front of the business, the customers could connect. So they would say, you know what, it's a lot that's going on, but let's look out for Pandora's box. Let's make sure, we could go somewhere else. It could be convenient for us to shop on e-commerce, but this business has been here for years. We want to make sure she stays. So I think, again, going back to making those connections and those relationships, because it has been hard. My store has definitely been vandalized during that time. That was a very, not only hurtful, but it was also hard because I had been closed for several months during the pandemic. And Baltimore City was one of the areas where we reopened a lot later than most cities did, or most areas in the surrounding counties did.
We hear about stores being vandalized. So when we were watching all of this happen, many of us, we would see it and shake our heads and feel bad. But what is that like when you go to your store and you realize that your store was one of the ones vandalized?
It's very traumatic. I remember, and to this day, when you go through something traumatic like that, I don't forget about it, even though it's over, but I haven't forgotten about it. I remember that day, the first day that I decided to go back. Now that I can go back and sit in a salon. I was getting my hair done that morning, just was getting shampooed, and I get a police call, and then there's the neighborhood association calling me and say, hey, you got to get here fast because your store's been vandalized. And I was like, what? And so I'm rushing. I'm rushing so bad, hair wet, everything. My stylist like, let me blow dry your hair a little bit. You can't, So I get there, and I couldn't believe it, because I'm like, why? What? And then, especially, not to say that this makes it better, but when I came inside and I saw the damages that was done, no one took anything. I almost would have felt better if someone took some things that they needed, or because they needed the things. I'm not inviting anybody to steal or go out there. Right. I'm not saying that, but it was just pure, just vandalism, just mean-spirited, let's just destroy the store. And it was heartbreaking, because then, it's uneasy feeling. There's a trust level there. You feel, there's a sense of, you're violated, and it's hard to overcome that. It's hard for me to I'm better about it these days, but I still live in a way okay, where of course I'm I need to protect the store. I need to do blah, 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 but you never, I don't think your life never changes. Your life is never the same after that. You always, there's a constant, not worry, but I'm I think about that moment quite often.
Yeah. And I would imagine, so if you're experiencing it, and like I said, many of us, we watch it, we have that one moment of, compassion or support or anger, on your behalf, but then we move on, right? And no one thinks about what that looks like to start rebuilding, the losses financially, and what it takes to feel secure in your neighborhood.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely the loss financially. Like I said, we were just, the store had just reopened, and during a time where it was horrible. And I was angry. I was angry because because especially when, you build your business off of community and
Right.
going back to those relationships, and it makes you think, you start to second guess. Why am I doing this? Are these relationships are really good relationships? Am I not in the right area? So you start second guessing all of the things that you felt like the confidence that you gained, that I gained to even go to the next level with my business. Now it changes, because of these type of things that happen.
I had a conversation with a girlfriend of mine today who has a business that she's frustrated in terms of it's not growing. It's not bringing in the kind of finances. And every entrepreneur goes through that dry spell where you're just like, I need this business to make money because, as you mentioned, I have to live. And so she just wants to go back to work. Right. And so, and I imagine that's not an unusual feeling, thinking, maybe I should just pack this up and go back to work. What prevents you, right? What goes on in your mind that keeps you saying it's worth me staying here? It's worth me fighting through whatever disappointment, whatever frustrations, whatever anger I feel and I mean, your business is in much better space now, but in those moments, what was it that kept you going forward?
Part of I could hear my grandmother's voice would say to me growing up, the devil's a liar. Like in your moments of when you want to give up, there's a breakthrough. I know for me personally, every time I've gotten that, like, well, maybe I changed this, or maybe I should just, there was something that was a breakthrough that would come through that would remind me, or I always go back to remember why I started, or changing something, actually ask for help. Maybe I didn't have all the answers, or try to figure out, like I've done surveys on times when things I just didn't know, like I would ask my customers, or I have someone do an audit on my business, like, what is it that, because I was fortunate that my growing pains were a little different. Like from the minute I started, I had customers. My problem was I would sell out and I'm like, oh, what I'm going to do? Like you can't have an empty space, so that was my issue. But I still had issues because I didn't have a backup plan, because I had already told myself, because of like, oh no, businesses that take years for people to find you. But what I do know is location means everything. And I went off of my checklist. I was like, okay, I knew from the very beginning it needed to, location was everything. The income level needed to be there of what I wanted to sell. I needed visibility. I needed visibility, and I needed to be in a part of a neighborhood, because when those visitors or people are not traveling, I need the surrounding neighborhood, the community, to be there and to show up. So I think for me, it was just making sure. So once I had that checklist, I sought out a location that would work for that criteria. So I would say, even for your friend, just reevaluate the business. Don't give it up. Maybe you might just have to pivot a little. There's power in the pivot. And so maybe not to give up. Maybe you just got to do something different, or a different direction. Have someone else look at it from a different lens. Because oftentimes we love what we love, and we're so connected to it. And that's another thing that I felt like there's things in my store today that I like. I don't have oftentimes customers like, oh, do you have everything in your house? I'm like, probably not. These things are for you. I like them, of course. I don't want to sell anything I absolutely don't like, but you have to really listen to what your customer wants. And I think oftentimes when we start businesses, we do what our heart tells us, which is fine. You can be the entrepreneur, but if your customer is saying, I'm not buying this, I don't like that, then scratch it. You're not a failure because of that. And actually, you do need to fail. That's when you know you're growing.
That's so true. So let's talk about the store. So you've got accessories and gifts and jewelry and things for all parts of the home. Some of it is sexy and quirky and a little provocative.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about some of the things that are in your store.
Okay, so first and foremost, I like to always speak because again, it's building relationships, and I want customers, the things that I sell, to speak to them, to the emotions, not to just to their pockets or their wallets, to the emotion. I want to touch someone's heart. I want them to say, you know what, this reminds me of such and such, you know? So let's start there. So lots of gifts for the home that are snarky, that are definitely curse words, swear words. Then it's cute earrings that I feel like that you could go out in, and, you know, that are, I try not to, and make things that are different, you know? And I run Pandora's Box like a pop-up shop. I've always, before there was the term pop-up shop, I'm like, I want to get it in, I want to get it out. Even though there's some staples in the store that customers like, oh, you know, I want it, you know, there's some that I sell like every year, but then there's a lot, like I switch over to inventory quite often. I switch over to inventory quite often. Because it just keeps the customer wanting to come back for more and more and more. So I have eclectic gifts. I have funny oven mitt that you wouldn't typically see in the big commercial stores, because, you know, I can't compete with them, nor do I try to.
Right.
But I want to have it eclectic enough, unique enough that someone say, you know what, I need to get a gift for my friend who has everything, or just about, you know, things that they normally can buy most things for themselves, but I know they wouldn't have this. And I pride myself in selecting, curating, and creating, because I'm a creator. I create a lot of items that are memorable.
What I also love is that you support local creatives and artisans. And so tell us what that process is of selecting someone to be.
So basically, a lot of times they find me and they'll say, hey, I got such and such. And I'll say, okay, send me your line list. Let me see your product. Let me know where you're selling them. I ask them, what do you like about it? What is your best sellers? Because I'm only going to sell your best. I only want to carry your best sellers in the shop, not something that you just made that you love so much. Right. No, I only want to, you know, I don't have that much shelf space. I always say, this is not a museum. We got to sell it. We got to get it in, and it has to leave.
Right.
So, so that's usually the process. And they'll send me, and I look at things all week long. And I'll say, oh, this is great. The second part is their story. So tell me about your story. Like, how did you get started? And if that story resonates with me, and I think customers would, you know, really like the story behind how they got started, then that's, you know, I select them. And that's just basically what I do. And they're selected. You know, we schedule an appointment. They drop it off. If it's something that I'm not sure about, we do a consignment agreement for 30 days. If it sells really well, then I'll say, you know what, I just need to wholesale this product from you. Or sometimes I love it so much, I'm like, well, I would like this if we tweaked it a little bit. Let's do a license agreement. How about let's just change the design a little bit to this, because I think this would probably be more suiting for our customer. And let's do a license agreement for a year or 2 years. And there you have it. And it's exclusive for the store. It's not cookie cutter all over at all these different small shops. That's usually like how I get creators in the store, or I go find them. If it's somebody that really has things that I really like, I'm like, oh no, this is it. This is innovative. This is, you know, because I feel like I know that I am a forward thinker about product. For some reason, I've just always been that way. So I can see it before it becomes mainstream, you know? So, and that's how it just ends up in the store.
Is there anything that you had doubts about and surprised you, or anything that you were really excited about and the sales didn't?
Okay. So yeah. So, what was it? Let's see. What surprised me the most, which I'm a gift shop, but I would have never thought that books would sell. So, because I'm not a bookstore, but when I tell you the amount of books that I sell because I sell kids, adults, just a wide range, but also bestsellers, I'm so mad. I've been sleeping on this for so long. Like, I wish I could go back. I'm like, I really lost a lot of revenue here. Like, and you don't have to be a bookstore. Like, all I needed to do was create a section. So that surprised me. To this day, even today, I'm like, I cannot believe I sold this amount of books. Like, these earrings I thought was going to go just like that. People coming in for books. Are you serious? Let's see. What?
I was told that about FedEx, actually. I had gone in and they said, you'd be surprised. They sell a lot of books. I don't know if they sell them in all the stores, but the stores that I've gone in where they have books, they said you'd be surprised.
Let me tell you, if your friend who's saying that she's struggling to have this or I want to get some books up in there, or our website. I want to get some books, definitely. What didn't what was it that, trying to think, what was the one thing that, that's hard to say. Let me see.
Well, and that's actually good. That means that your selection process is really good.
Yeah, I don't even know what that one thing is that didn't sell, like that kind of was like, was a little disappointing.
That's excellent. Yeah. So you haven't had a whole lot of trial and error. You pretty much, if you see something, that means you know your customers.
Yeah, no, I haven't had a whole lot of yeah, no, I actually haven't. The only thing that I can say, that things that sold really well, and I'm like, let me get some more and let me get some more. I should have probably like discontinued, like, okay, no, because now the customers are tired of it, because now they see it everywhere. So there's been some times, and I went against what I normally would do and say, let me just reorder it again and again and again. And I knew I should have stopped after the second time, because it became a little lackluster. Like, by the time I was on my third run with it, at this point, it's everywhere. So now I'm really competing, and I should have just stopped. But other than that, no, I don't think anything recently, in the recent years. I'm like, even skincare items that I had, like the ones that I do sell, they're number one on TikTok. I went and found them online from TikTok, and I was like, I like this young lady. She's sustainable. You know what? I want her product in my store. And it's an easy sell, because I can just repost a lot of her TikToks or share.
Right.
So someone that's already have a following in a relationship already with, so that was easy for me. I'm like, so if I'm going to do the skincare, I want it, because I'm not, I need it to sell itself. Like, I'm not going to be doing facials in here, anything. So it needs to be able to sell itself.
Yeah. So what's next for your business? Do you think you would franchise? Do you want to expand into another location? Or do you like being where you are and just expanding in the store?
So definitely expansion. A second store here in somewhere Baltimore, Maryland. My next spot, I absolutely want to, of my own heart, I would love to go to New York. I feel like I need to be in New York. New York needs me.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to be in Brooklyn, where we are. Brooklyn needs you.
All right. But no, in my heart, I said this, I like literally wrote out a list. So there's another location here in Baltimore. Next, I would go to New York. While I'm doing that, I'm also working on my own concurrently a new company with trademark to own my own brand. That way I can create and sell like a lot of the things that I create that are my best sellers here, that I can also have license agreements with other companies and create for others. So that's where I'm going. 2 locations, and then the other company is more just e-commerce, and then working with other companies to just create for them.
So until you expand, where can the listeners find you?
Okay, so they can find me in Baltimore in Historic Federal Hill, 50 East Cross Street, Baltimore, Maryland. They can find me on Instagram at Shop Pandora's Box Boutique, and you can shop directly from Instagram on some of the things that I sell. Usually you can shop the best sellers directly from Instagram. They can find me on Facebook at Shop Pandora's Box Boutique. Of course, online at pandorasboxboutique.com. They can find me on TikTok. I love TikTok.
I do too. There's a lot of concern about it, but I do too.
I mean, I can get there's concern, but I like it. It's real.
It's accessible.
I like it. I feel like there's not a lot of judgment. People are just themselves on there. And it was real to me. So, and I thought that I take it forward. I mean, I'm sure there's people might have their other reasons, but that's, I can't wrap my head around that part of it yet. So it's just fun for me.
And so we can find you and the same hand?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was great talking to you. My business partner recommended you and could not say enough wonderful things about you. So I'm so glad we were able to have you on. And I look forward to visiting your store. I'm definitely going to be shopping online, but I look forward to walking in and seeing you in Baltimore.
Exactly. Well, I'm rebranding right now, so my new website should be up in the end of July. I mean, it's still shoppable right now, but it's going to look really nice. New products, refreshed. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Monisha. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for listening. We'll be back again next week with another dynamic guest. Take care.
The Business First podcast is hosted and produced by Sonia Aline. Executive producer Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. On social media on IG at business_first_podcast. Follow the Mean Old Line Media Podcast Network on IG at Mean Old Line Media. Get the Mean Old Line Media app in the App Store or Google Play. The Business First podcast is a Mean Old Line Media production.